Jackson Kayak, and this is the first video of the series that I'll be doing on anchoring. And in this video I'm going to show you on my two kayaks here some of the basic setups that I use for anchoring, and give you some tips and tricks and what to avoid and what to use for hassle-free anchoring. So let's get to it. So here you can see my kayak quiver for kayak fishing. This is my Kraken, which is a kayak that I use whenever I know I'll be doing a lot of paddling. I'll be traveling between distant spots and I need the speed that the Kraken gives you, or indeed the capacity or the ability to tackle rough conditions. Over here, this is a new concept that we're introducing in Europe next year. It's an inflatable kayak board, and this one I use for hit and run missions, where when I know that I'll be staying in one spot for a long period of time and I'll be fishing it mostly standing up. You can see that both of my kayaks are equipped with anchor trolley setup. So we can start with this, and I'll walk you through the anchor trolley setup and show you how I do it. So the anchor trolley is basically set up with a pulley that's attached here to a pad eye. The pad eye is held by two big washers with a waterproof layer on it, so that it doesn't allow water going in. I use washers right about this size. The bigger the better, actually, but you gotta watch out not to put the washer on an edge, to put it right here on the flat areas. On the Zander, I got a similar setup. The Zander comes anchor trolley ready with a glue-on loop here where you can attach your pulley. Now, you can also attach an anchor trolley without drilling into the kayak. Like on the Kraken, you wouldn't have to attach it here on the front handle and on the back handle here. I don't do it. Why? Because if you attach your pulley here and on the front handle, the anchor trolley rope is going to go straight into your cockpit, if you imagine it. So it's not a perfect solution. I would recommend drill 2 holes, just put those big washers there. It's a proven setup. You don't really need to attach it here. It just causes problems and the whole setup doesn't work that well. So another thing that I really recommend with anchor trolley is to use a combination of a big carabiner and a metal ring. Why a big carabiner? You want to be able to, if you imagine, here's the anchor, and you kind of want to be able to manipulate the anchor rope and the carabiner with one hand. So basically snap it with one hand and also release it with one hand. So this kind of carabiners is the way to go. Some of you might be tempted to use something like this, a small cheap carabiner. Now there's quite a few problems with this approach. If you compare it to this one, it's too fiddly. You just can't control it, can't manipulate it with one hand, and you can kind of see the sharp edges here. And what happens is that they snag the ropes that you're putting into your carabiner. So you see that basically. Now I can't. Yeah, there you go. You can do something like this, but I would recommend using a bigger one, bigger carabiner. Now the anchor trolley, I'll show you here. The anchor trolley allows you to clip your anchor line. This is the line that goes to the anchor. you clip it into the carabiner, and then from your seat you can move the anchoring point to the back or to the front as the situation requires, or indeed into the middle. So you'll be messing around with this a lot, because anchoring is something that you do all the time with your fishing kayak. Now let's have a look on the actual anchor setup. So what I use now is a 2.5 kilo Bruce anchor that's attached. The rope is attached to the lower hole on the anchor, and the top hole here is used only to attach to the rope by using some kind of wire. Like, this is pretty small diameter wire, and while you do this, if the anchor is snagged, and you can imagine it's somewhere like this, and there's a rock, something on it, you would lose your anchor if you were tied all the way here. If you start pulling, this will snap and you will pull out the anchor by the lower point. So that's a security measure to avoid losing too many anchors in snags. Another thing that I really recommend is using a 5mm diameter rope for the anchor line. Why? Because it doesn't get tangled as much as a lower diameter rope, and it's much easier on your hands. If you imagine your hands are wet, if you'd use a lower diameter rope, it would cut to your hands. It would be painful to operate the anchor, to pull it back up from the bottom. Now, another good thing about the Bruce anchor is that it fits into a rod holder, so you can basically have it like this. And we're getting to anchor line storage. I use a piece of Eva foam that I cut to about this size. It floats. The color, anything that you can see, like this is pink, orange would work, bright green would work as well. Why bright? Because imagine you got a snag, your lure is snagged, you're on anchor, you don't want to pull that anchor back up, you just want to go and release the snag and come back to your anchor. So basically what you do is you release your anchor rope, you throw this into the water, yeah, the anchor's already there, and the buoy, the anchor buoy, just stays right there with your rope on it. You can go anywhere you want, come back to the buoy and get this back into the kayak and clip the anchor rope back in, and you're anchored. Now, one small comment here. Why use this metal ring here? Now, you should use this because sooner or later, when you're manipulating your anchor line during the day, something will happen. It will get tangled and you'll get something like this. A proper tangle. Now, it would take a lot of time. You see, it's... well, it actually came off. Anyway, like, what I mean is, if the anchor rope gets somehow wrapped around your anchor trolley line, and you see, this is the result. It's a mess. You just kind of want to be able to release the metal ring, just undo the whole thing, and then it's much easier to get rid of the tangle and continue fishing. Just get rid of the tangle, clip the ring back in, and you're good to go. So, let's review the most important points. 2.5 kilo anchor attached by the lower part with a security attachment up here. The anchor rope should be 5mm or thicker to protect your hands and to avoid tangles. You should store the anchor rope on something that floats and that has some good signal color on it, so that you can release the anchor leave this in the water, do what you need to do, and come back to it, retrieve it, put it back in your kayak. And big carabiners that you can operate with one hand. And I use pulleys because these have worked for me really well. This kind of attachment, you could attach it here, but I prefer this kind. You can see the same setup here on my Xander. So this is pretty much it. You can see I got the same system on both. Yeah, maybe one more comment to close this video with. I put my anchor trolleys on the right side of the kayak. Why? Because I hold my rod in my right hand, so I would typically land my fish on the left side of the kayak. Because my rod is in my right hand, I land the fish on the left side of the kayak, and you don't want to land fish on the same side where you got ropes all around the kayak, because the hooks, if you're using a jerkbait with several treble hooks, once the fish start trashing by your kayak, it could get tangled with the hooks into your anchor line or into the anchor trolley itself, and then it's a messy situation and you can lose the fish or just have some other problem. So I hope you enjoyed this video. This has been first of the series of videos about anchoring of fishing kayaks. I'll be doing some more videos. You can send me some suggestions in the comment box on YouTube, and the next video that I'll be doing will be on anchoring tactics on lakes.